that on record, that that's part of the objection. We did hear that you could see it from the hiking trails, although nobody knows whether you can see it or not because there's never really been a thorough investigation. But that idea to me is abhorrent. If I was one of these people who had been abused by him and I had to go down these hills, I would be, appalled. So I just wanted to put that on record, that that is part of this investigation. It's not just a Buddha. It's not a legitimate, authentic, spiritual path. In that sense, it does have a lot of controversy to it.
And you are?
Oh, sorry, my name's Gail Margulis. I've been quoted. And I live on Woodland Avenue. And I speak for
Yes. Steve.
Thank you. I'm Stephen Hefner. I'm the Vice President of the Woodland Community Association. I'm sorry that our President could not be here and speak to this issue herself. But
she recused herself.
She has recused herself from this issue because her company in New York has business with the gentleman. So I wanted to speak to a couple of things. Mostly, everyone knows that there's a lot of emotional feelings about this, and so the opinions of the Woodland Valley community are kind of run the gamut. And so I wanted to try to characterize the ones that I've heard in the most constructive manner for us. First of all, we're mostly a property owning association, so we have a great deal of interest in keeping some sense of our property rights and making sure that they are protected in the valley. So to that extent, we're really happy to hear that all of the proceedings, the zoning board, et cetera, are very transparent, because we would like our neighbor Sanjay to have at least due process. So that's important. Second is, I think that it's key to understand that the scope of this project is not necessarily covered in our laws as written. So when we heard this, there's no statute on statutes. We want to make sure that we understand the interpretation of the current laws need to expand to the size, literally the size of this project and its impact on our community. In particular, I think the important piece is that Mr. Rawalsing the impact could be to the valley. It could become, it certainly would be an attraction, it certainly would be a spectacle, and we want to make sure that the fact that this is going to have unintended consequences for possibly decades, if not centuries to come in the valley. Because this is a very, very large structure. We did hear his presentation that said it was on a 6-foot pedestal of concrete and then 35 feet or more in height above that. So it's a substantial spectacle of a monument. So we want to make sure that that's understood. That is it. We also, as a community association, don't have an opinion on whether this should go forward. We are just really want to impress upon the authorities that we're interested in watching this process, and we want to be helpful in any way we can.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of the surrounding community of Woodstock. I have a very personal relationship with the person who is depicted in the statue. His name is Sri Chinmoy. And I was a member of his group for 20 years. The group, I consider it to be defined as a cult. And what I mean when I talk about that is it's a group that takes religious rituals and directs it at an individual, a charismatic individual, and worships that person as a god. And a group that has very high control of individuals' actions. A group that tries to control the way people think. So very clearly, that group fell into all of those specific definitions of cult. I left the cult about 17 years ago. So it still has tremendous emotional impact on me. because there was some very negative things that happened to me when I tried to leave the cult. And it's just very painful because my husband and I, we lived at Woodstock. We visited Woodland Valley Park probably twice a week for many months. We moved here 3 years ago. Since we found out the statue was going to be there, we just simply feel that we can't visit. We can't visit the park there because it's very painful to us that this group is establishing a presence there. And this presence is very large. This statue represents a bigger investment than they have in their headquarters in Queens. In their headquarters in Queens, they have several houses dedicated to the group. They have a center for their worship. None of those structures or buildings or any of it, they didn't put as much of an investment into any of that as they're putting into this one structure. And for reference, this structure is taller than Kingston City Hall. Kingston City Hall is one of the tallest buildings in upstate New York. This is an enormous structure. This structure is going to be built somewhere on a hill, and I took the time to research from the maps that are available online. How steep is the slope? It's 49 degrees from what I can tell by doing the calculation. So they are building a road on a very steep slope. The state of New York requires geotechnical review just for the road. The state requires, now in the state building code and in the town of Shandaken building code, it's quite clear that a structure is broadly defined as anything that's anchored to the ground and has walls surrounding it. So this is most definitely a structure. It's not a silo. A silo is an agricultural use, and it definitely wouldn't fall into a silo. And it's very questionable whether you would allow a silo on a very steep slope as well. So I have personal objections to this, but I also have concerns that for some reason this was completely, all of the zoning regulations were completely sidestepped. When I learned about this last November, I contacted Warren Tutt because I was in complete disbelief that this was being built and they hadn't required permits. I have email correspondence with him where it was confirmed to me that there was no requirement for permits. So what Sanjay said, he wasn't required to have a permit, I believe that might be true. But I believe that somehow he was able, Sanjay was able to work on Warren's mind to somehow convince him that either the conversation wasn't going anywhere or that Sanjay was somehow right, that there's no statute for statues. But the main thing is a statue of this magnitude, it's a structure, and it falls into the zoning code for structures. And the state has clearly defined rules for undetermined structures if they're not falling into the regular four-wall type structures. So to me, all of the zoning regulations plus special, as the current zoning officer says, special use, and also we should not allow the applicant to determine what is religious. If a structure looks religious and it's patterned after a temple, which I believe it is, and Sanjay has apparently alluded to this structure being patterned after the Kamakura Buddha in Japan. And he has also, I guess, stated to people that people don't enter the Kamakura Buddha. But that is not my experience. I have visited the Kamakura Buddha and I've walked inside it with hundreds of other people who visit it daily and walk into it. They say prayers and then they walk out. So it's very much a religious structure and very much a structure that people enter. So that's my, sorry to be, I'm sure my emotions are coming out, but I wanted to share my thoughts with you. I feel very strongly about this. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you.
Tell me your name.
We got your name?
My name is Ann Carlton, and I live in Willow in West Woodstock.
Thank you. Any other open public comment? Well, Rick, you're always last. Doris, go ahead.
All right.
You want me to, oh,
Yeah, I want
I
you
just
to
had a question, I just had a quick question on
Yes.
the board that's being, or the committee that's being formed for, reviewing Airbnb, whatever. How many sort of civilians are being represented by that?
There's none on the committee at this time, but as I said to several people outside, my theory, again, we had a document that I received somewhere, and it talked about how to develop these short-term rental laws or legislations, and really it's about, again, reaching out to the community. I think I said to Kevin today about, I'm sure at some point, like within the first few months, we'll probably develop a survey that we're going to send out to residents and ask for input. This thing, it'll take some time. This isn't going to be something that's going to happen overnight, but we're certainly looking to get input. And really, it's going to start with, what does the Shandaken community want this law to be? What are they looking to get out of it? I mean, we want certain protections, but we also want to preserve people's right to do what they can. It's going to be, we've got some different perspectives, and like I said, we'll be reaching out to the public on several occasions, and we'll have meetings here. It'll be a lengthy process, I would imagine. Again, once we come up with something, then it'll be bandied around the planning boards and zoning boards, and what do you think, and it'll be amended from there, the town board will chime in, so people will know about it, trust me. I know it's important for quite a few people, like Mr. Cohen in the back.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because the zoning laws are in place, and it clearly states that transient guests are not permitted in certain zones. Why are you not enforcing the rules that are already in place?
Again, it's zoning officer and code officer, it's up to their interpretation of the law. And to think that we're not enforcing some law, I mean, I can tell you, Harris, again, I appreciate, you've got a situation where you are. But we need a law that's directed at this, directly at this. This is fairly new phenomenon, and it's not just here. This is statewide and national. This is all over the place, and needs to be addressed with legislation directly at it. Be it Airbnb, VRBO, Catskill Getaways, short-term, real short-term rentals. There's, again, as we've heard about with this statute, and whether it's a structure or not, there's, again, our code was written back in 1980s, and it's really, it's been, well, 70s, but it's been updated here and there, and really, there's holes in it. I mean, there's stuff that's happening now that was never even dreamed of back in the day, and we're slowly, it's coming at us, so we will address it.
On the upside, there are a lot of communities that you can look at that have already gone through this.
Right.
Whether you're looking on a big scale, Portland, Oregon already has laws about Airbnb, or you look at Woodstock, what they're doing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have sort of an idea of
So
how
you
to
can
get
kind of
going.
fast track with looking at what they have,
Yeah.
Well,
There's
again,
models.
one of
see
the,
how it works with our community.
again, the things we have is,
No, right.
I know the planning board had for a moment looked at a law that the city of Austin has. And I was like, what is, and it really just struck out the name Austin and put in Shandaken. And I was like, that's not going to work for us. It's not Austin city limits here. So anyway, we'll work on this over the next couple of months. So. Any other open public comment before I go to our illustrious gentleman in the back?
What am I, shit?
I know.
Come on.
I'm saving you. You're the best for last. That's what I'm saving, because I know you're going to go off on something.
I apologize for coming late, but the town board addressed that we need a co-chair put into the planning board.
No. No, that one dropped. Again, you can do that next month. Or
Because we need, there's certain things that need to be signed now.
and was it Cliff?
Yeah, Cliff Roboto.
Okay. So if the board is okay with it, can I entertain a motion to appoint Cliff Buffalo as the vice chair for the planning board?
I'll second.
Kevin makes the motion, Pete seconds. All in favor?
I
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, there you go. Okay, Mr. Riccadella.
All right. I have a few things.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
Number one, what's going on with the medical center?
Alright.
You want
It's
this?
supposed
Or?
Yeah.
to go in October.
Yeah. no?
Okay, we spent a year negotiating with people, and we pretty much went through everything they wanted, and then they refused to understand that they were renting as a lease from us. And we could not say at some point that the building might have to be taken over for a town purpose, or their rent would go up, or whatever, and they wanted a total commitment that they would always have that building.
Well, there's other people, there's doctors.
No, but this was, the building is meant to be for the good of the town, and it was a medical kind of service,
Yes, I know
which was
that.
perfect. And I've talked to Rob about possibly trying to figure out how we can change this so that we can actually rent the building out in another way.
No,
Because we have
I
an
want to see
empty
a doctor
building.
in there. We need a
Well, I
doctor.
know,
Well,
but that's, we had all that.
We've contacted doctors from the area, from the
Yeah.
region, and nobody's taking, nobody's biting.
Yeah, I had another one who was at the head of everything for Margaretville, Westchester. He was very interested, but then there's other concerns that he had that he kind of backed out after
Yeah.
these people backed out. But honestly, we were a year working with them, and we thought we had it all
Well,
sewn
we
up.
still should be continuing to look for someone.
Yeah,
And we will.
yeah.
Because in Boyceville, this guy isn't even a doctor, he's a medical assistant.
Well, he's a PA. Yeah.
He's not a doctor.
But that, well, anyways, they're very good PAs. So that's what we're trying to get somebody now, because we kind of wasted a lot of time.
Oh, could you put it in some kind of medical journal or something, that we're looking for someone to take over the building?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do that, we could advertise in a medical journal, that's fine.
Yeah,
See if we can get somebody to
on the
practice.
internet or, you know.
Yeah.
Again, Rick, it's, the deed is very restrictive, and we even had, trying to think outside the box a bit and saying, well, technically it's used for community purposes. Talk to the attorney. Well, if we had somebody that came in and they rented it full on, now, we were giving them quite a sweetheart deal, I have to say. We were giving them a very, very, very good deal because we wanted medical services there, and we couldn't get the deal done.
No.
But we were looking at, even if we could somehow rent it out to somebody for a period of time, but taking that rental fund to go back into a capital reserve account specifically for maintenance and repairs to that building to improve it, would that be considered community community
Yeah.
work?
Well, I think you should continue.
But we will, I think everybody up here would really like to see medical services there, and especially with the ambulance being stationed right next door, it just makes sense.
All right, number two.
Yes, sir.
We bit the bullet with we had 11 inches of rain on the gauge that I had. Luckily, it was in a time when we have full foliage that was still in bloom. If this was in early spring or in the winter time or late fall, we would have had trouble.
Yep.
I've asked you numerous times, you can look all up and down the corridor. The creek needs to be dug out.
Yeah.
We've had, I don't know, engineers, I don't know.
Put the
where it's
bulldozer
from.
up at the,
But they came in and did a study. I don't know how much it cost, but this should be addressed by the county. They should be interested in this also. Kathy, you should be checking into this as well as the state. And the state says you can't dig because we're worried about trout. Meanwhile, the next flood we get, we're going to lose parts of all these roads, and probably people are going to die.
Well-
And nobody cares about it.
well, first,
You go over on, and you're talking about the Big Indian over there with the Lakeside Drive. Now, it's been closed, what, for 2 weeks, that road?
Lakeside Drive.
Creekside Drive.
Creekside Drive.
Yeah, well, Frankfurt has a lake there, but, what's going on?
Okay, well, you did it again. This is what you did like last month or the month before. You
No, I
like
said
took
this.
3 different subjects and shoved them all in one box. But, so let's start with, first off, if it does flood, I hope nobody dies. We're very lucky with Irene. Secondly, we will never stop it from flooding. We can dig that stream out, as you say, as far as we can, and I'm gonna tell you, there'll be a rainstorm that'll come, and it'll still flood.
Well, we used to dig it out.
So we can't just put the bulldozer in there and go. You know, we've got some projects coming up for Phoenicia that we're looking to get done. We've got to talk to some homeowners about it down through the Bridge Street Bridge and so on and so forth, and we're hoping to get that accomplished. But the Creekside Drive issue wasn't even, it's not even a flood issue. The Creekside Drive issue, you jumped up and said, I've been yelling about Creekside Drive for years. The issue we had, and let me ask you, have you driven on Creekside Drive to exit onto Route 28?
You mean going over, yeah, sure, many times.
No, have you done it recently since the
No,
bridge
it's
reopened?
closed, isn't it?
No, it's been
It's
open.
been open,
Open now, how
It's been
long?
open 2 weeks.
2 weeks, 3 weeks. The problem there was not with the condition of the road so much. You know, yeah, we know, I know what you're talking about, it's sinking right by my house. But so is most of 47 when you go up towards Slide Mountain. John was just here, McLeod, Stapleton's gonna attest to it. You go up Oliveria Valley, there's all kinds of spots where that road is just sliding
Right.
in. And they just keep filling in with asphalt and keep filling in with asphalt, it's not answering. It's right by my house, my dad's house too.
But we had the opportunity.
But the issue there was that the intersection from Creekside Drive coming onto Route 28, now with a 5-foot guardrail, all you see is steel. You can't see, and I'm in a big SUV. If I'm in a compact car, I'm gonna say that right now for myself, the only time I feel safe pulling out of that intersection is nighttime, because I can see the headlights are coming.
That's great engineering, isn't it?
Hey, we mentioned it to the state, they shut it down for the continuation of the construction, and then they reopened.
They did take a couple bars out.
They curved it a little bit.
They pushed it a little bit more further away, but there wasn't much more they could do at the point that they were at, because the bridge was there.
But
Bridge was in.
when they were putting that bridge in, that should have never been allowed, that bridge, until they did the work on Creekside Drive and Old.
That had nothing to,
That should have been done.
one had nothing to do with the other, there was no reason.
Yes, it did. It had to be.
Okay,
You're talking about the bridge up in Shandaken, not the
no,
bridge.
he's talking about the entirety of Creekside Drive should be drawn up and repaved, which it should be.
It should have been prepped before you opened these other bridges. It should have been done.
But that's a county road and a state bridge on a
But
state
the
highway.
state was doing it, they were gonna do it because of the bridge there.
No.
Yes, they were.
Okay, I'm glad, because I didn't hear about that at any meeting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay,
Next.
number 3.
Well, this is like 5 now or something.
No, in town, in Phoenicia, we have people doing U-turns, K-turns, they're going through stop signs, and it's not being addressed.
Chance.
So noted, Rick, thanks.
Yeah, that's what we say every month, so noted.
We got it.
Yeah,
Okay?
but, this is another
I can't stop him.
pet peeve that I have. No,
I'm just saying. Okay, so we
I want to
can,
bring it to Chad's attention.
okay, you could have done that on the side. You didn't have to do it before. What else you got?
Well, no, I've done it on the side. This way maybe people will listen.
What's
No,
next?
I can't say anything.
This is why I save you for last, because I don't know where it's
54
going.
years I've been in business in this town, and I can't say anything.
I talk to you all the time.
All right, what's next?
That's it.
Sure? All right. Okay. With that, I'd ask that we take a moment and let Gail get seated so she can get back up in a minute.
Yeah.
With that, I would like to close the meeting in memory of William Schultz and keep the lead. Got a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Enjoy August. Stay cool.
I'm glad it's still, yeah, it's gonna be down.
you get my email?
When did you send it?
A while ago. You still looking for a place?
I'm still relatively looking. I've been going through some stuff.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Personal stuff. That's all. Sorry I didn't get back to you.
No, that's all right. Yeah, 'cause you
I like cats. Yeah.
no, because I might be able to have a kind of like a deal for you.